Hi guys, hi Carl. Welcome to Views and GetBlock AMA session. Let me start with a brief introduction. I'm Maria. I'm Business Development Manager at GetBlock. We're a blockchain as a service solution that lets users to get access to full nodes from multiple blockchains. And also we provide Views full blockchain nodes for all types of the DeFi and crypto projects. Carl, please introduce yourself.
Sure. So, Carl Anthony, I'm the Business Development Director at the Fuse Foundation. So, we're looking after the Fuse network. And yeah, we work in partnership with GetBlock to lower the barriers to entry for developers and infrastructure providers that want to come on board to use the Fuse network.
Great, thank you. So just a quick overview of today's AMA. So we are going with community-led questions. You know, there is kind of a lot of them. And thanks for posting those questions for us. And it's really great community engagement. So I guess we're ready to start with the questions, or do you have to add something, Carl?
No, just, it's great to get the opportunity to speak to the community of both projects. No, I'm more than happy to answer the questions. Happy to be here.
Okay, so the first question is like the basic questions that can introduce the project in general. Can you tell some information about the mission, vision, values, goals about of the Fuse?
Sure. So, I think it's easiest if I split the Fuse network into two parts. So we have our traditional, I say traditional, but we have that kind of robust, diverse ecosystem of DeFi that exists on the protocol. We're an L1 EVM chain, delegated proof of stake consensus, and we're actually a fork of what is now known as Gnosis, but was XDAI, but then we actually forked POA at the beginning. So we'll cut that in half. So obviously there's the DeFi stuff more traditionally, and the other half of that is that we really focus on being an alternative payment rail to the likes of Stripe, to the likes of Visa. If you imagine Stripe or Visa is 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. We've done projects or use cases where we've been able to do over $1 million in transactions, 150,000 transactions for $100 in today's Fuse money, right? So significantly less than that before. Really, it's about how do we make a more inclusive financial system? How do we give infrastructure that's open source, reliable, and available to the masses?
Oh, wow. I mean, like, that's great. I didn't know about, like, the payment system. Okay, and the second question. Can you name 3 features of your project that make it ahead of competitors? What are the competitive advantages that you feel most confident about? Because, there are different blockchains and, they have some, special things.
Sure. So I wouldn't solely place on. I know a lot of other blockchains will look to solely place that in kind of like finality of transaction or something magical they do in terms of that. But ours is really more from a simplistic perspective in the terms that what we do very well. So from a business perspective, firstly, let's say a business perspective, me personally and some of the other guys, we have experience in building channels. So we look to build a more mature channel environment. I mentioned to you earlier about a payment solution. We could maybe do that as a one-off in terms of being a foundation in a lab. But where we have experience is building those channels of distribution and integration, resellers across those boards, so solutions providing. And that allows us to kind of scale a bit more. We don't have to teach our internal blockchain guys how to hunt sales and payment opportunities. So I would say that first and foremost, having experience in cultivating real world solutions is the first part of that. The second part, which I think is really important, is that we're very, very interoperable and we're very flexible as a team. So I think at the moment on Fuse, we have about 6 or 7 bridges. You can basically go from Fuse to anywhere. I don't know if you heard this phrase, Waterloo to anywhere. You can take Fuse and you can go to anywhere that you want to and come back through. We're always very open and very inclusive to other protocols. We work with other blockchains. We're very open, very collaborative blockchain. And thirdly, what I was confident about, I just think this is a great team, right? So Mark, our CEO, has been in the space since 2012 when he initially was working on payment solutions with colored coins for Bitcoin. So he's very long in the tooth right now. It's 10 years in the game trying to develop these solutions. His progression has gone through that as well. He's worked with, if you think about trying to do payments on Bitcoin, obviously it's not very functional. Maybe like the network will improve that, but it's yet to be seen. And then you also have this middle ground where he was working with a company called Kolu. And Kolu actually really gravitated more towards a centralized version of local currency. And then, this final iteration, which is Fuse, is more open source. It's more available to the masses. It's a sandbox in which people can come and use. And we understand there are barriers, but that's why we onboard partners like GetBlock, so that we can begin to make those barriers a bit lower and encourage devs that maybe were not sure whether they wanted to do that, to not have to think about the infrastructure, but to think about the problem.
That's right. Okay, so the next question is about the decentralized finance. What is, how does Fuse support DeFi?
Yeah, sure. So from a DeFi perspective, we're incredibly supportive of protocols that want to bring their communities or come over and use Fuse as to come through. So there we can look at options, and it's not that everybody gets those options, but we do look at options like bootstrapping the liquidity of a platform to help their performance when they come on board. There are grants that are available that's run through the Fuse DAO team, which is actually a separate autonomous group from the actual Fuse Foundation itself, and they make decisions as they go through. The way that we view decentralized finance is it is a means to an end, right? It's a way to be a bit more innovative within the kind of financial space, and using decentralized finances that way. But it also allows us to begin to, like I was mentioning earlier, use those as payment systems. So we have a project on the Fuse network at the moment called People, P-E-E-P-L, People Eats. And this is like a platform for, it's kind of a cross between a marketplace and an app store, right?
Okay.
And yeah, and they're real. So they have like 3 or 4 partners that they've onboarded, and what they're doing is that they're using the Fuse network to transact with local businesses. So one of their projects is a Deliveroo competitor in the city of Liverpool. And what that allows them to do is, if you think about that lower cost of price, it allows consumers and merchants to benefit from lower prices and higher profits, which is fantastic for them. But also that means that utilizing their token, which is created, it allows them to provide cashback or something a little bit more interesting, something that makes it a bit more sticky. And those tokens, let's say, for instance, you're getting cashback. So I think they use the People token. Those tokens that you use in cashback, you can actually use to make future purchases, and it becomes more captive. And kind of the rationale behind that is that if you think about your local economy, for every dollar that you'll spend, let's say a Walmart or a Tesco or something like that, only 10 pence or 10 cents or 10% will stay in the local economy. Whereas if you're more likely to support local businesses that are homegrown, that are part of the community, you'll see 40%, 40 cents, 40 pence of that dollar or pound remain in your community and to kind of carry forward. So it really is, how do we help communities grow from the bottom up, and how does that become a bit more inclusive from that perspective?
And it's really great. Okay, another question is about validators. So how does Fuse help validators, or why would you advise to become a Fuse validator?
So yeah, I mean, validators are an important part of securing the Fuse network, right? We're on a road to decentralization. We're not fully there yet. We're currently capped at around 100 validators, and I believe last time I checked, I think we're on around 65 currently. We're keen to get to that 100, and we can re-review then at that level whether we need to get through or not. But it's also really important to have the input of high-quality validators to, help us with the guidance and strategic direction of the network. Do we need to make changes? Do we need to implement something that's maybe implemented on Gnosis? Is there an issue with one of the token formats that we have? All these kind of things are very important. But on a secondary part of that, using if you're a project and you come to Fuse Network and you want to do a feeless project or something along those lines, of course, as the price of Fuse rises, it may become more costly to do transactions. But actually, when we say you can encourage you to run a validator, not only do you have a long-term stake in the strategic direction of the network, but also there's a way there to use. So I think APY is currently around 20%-ish, give or take. But that's also a way to offset fees and offset models to keep your project as free. So there's 2 parts to it. Be part of the Fuse network, be part of the direction of it, And secondly, as a project, if you want to come on board and subsidize fees or work your way through, there's an opportunity there as well. So.
And thank you for this answer. Okay, right now we are in the middle of our list of the questions. So this is the fifth question. Do you have any tutorials about how to run a validator on Fuse?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we have a pretty straightforward guide, but there's also a very simple way to set up a validator. So our backend guy, Andy, he set up a script. So you can literally run a one-line script and you can spin up your node and you'll be ready to go, right? And you can start delegating to your own node. So yes, there are tutorials that exist. There's also very simple, but even once you get into that tutorial, it's really not challenging at all. It's not like you're going to have to sit there trying to absorb it. It's quite quick to get on board.
So, I mean, like, it does mean that the person have to be, like, experienced in that, so it's kind of pretty simple?
Yeah, it's quite straightforward in that context. You will need a little bit of experience, of course.
Okay.
I'm not asking for, I'm not saying that,
Just like
anybody in the industry can come and do that, but, for this space and for everybody here, if you have some kind of competency in IT, it should be relatively straightforward for you, yes.
Okay. So what are the future plans for the Fuse? Goals you're planning to achieve, for example?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that's why it's really relevant speaking to you at the moment. So as we onboard partners like GetBlock or any other infrastructure partners that come to the chain, we're actually trying to switch the macro view of the Fuse network, right? So at the moment, it's a cheap network. It's good to come and use. It's robust. Everybody trusts it. It's really good. But actually, we want this to be an attractive place, not just a place that's good. We want it to be an attractive place for developers and project makers to come on board and go there. So how do we do that? We change that. So participation in greater hackathons. We'll have an ecosystem fund that we'll look to maybe launch towards the back end of this year. Boot camps, being present at more events. We want this to be a chain that is attractive to people who are transitioning from Web 2 to Web 3, and we want it to be attractive to people that already have projects cross-chain on Web 3. We want them to all come on board, and this chain should be one that's very accommodating to project owners and developers.
That's great. So the next question is, how many businesses operate on Fuse nodes? And maybe can you name the most successful cases?
Sure. How many? It's quite, because we have the Fuse Studio, it's quite a low barrier to entry as well. Like I say, we're always about lowering that barrier to entry. Pass on the number of businesses running currently, but I can, I've mentioned some other ones. People, we have Flambu that are also going to be running on the Fuse network. We have cross-chain protocols like Sushi and Beefy Finance. We have Voltage, which exists there. So there are a number of different projects that run on Fuse nodes. So I guess, I don't know whether we're classed as the most successful, but it's definitely the most transaction heavy. So it depends how you can transact. I think it's very successful, right? But it's a subjective thing. So Good Dollar is probably the project that contributes the most transactions per day on the Fuse network at the moment. And Good Dollar is a UBI project. It's ran by a team out of Israel. And I think they have some backing from Yoni Asir as well, from eToro. This is a great project, right? So this is a project where you can come and you can kind of claim, it's UBI, like I said, universal basic income, and you can utilize that. And those Good Dollars, there are options to farm that on the Fuse network. I believe they're setting up some farms with other projects on the Fuse network. I won't say that at the moment. But it's an incredibly successful use case of how crypto and the decentralized finance space can be used to deliver some common good. And I did mention earlier about having a validator and being able to use that to subsidize your business model. Good Dollar actually do have an example. They run Validator and they do subsidize their business model utilizing that, and it provides a lot of social good.
So yeah, I see. And okay, I see that next question is kind of similar to the previous one. Can you tell us what can you currently use Fuse for? So basically, tell us about how other projects cooperate with Fuse.
Yeah, so I've given the example of it was a music festival where we support a payment system. And that was the one I mentioned, 150,000 transactions, over $1 million in gross kind of revenue. This was a festival called Mystic Valley in Thailand. So this is a great example of merchants and consumers being able to utilize the Views. It was a white label wallet as well, so anybody can build and use off that. This is an example. Flambu is like it's like a peer-to-peer lending platform. So you've got I don't know, you've got an Xbox, Maria, that I want to borrow, and you don't need it for the weekend, so you post it up for it to be borrowed, and I'd say, actually, I really need this for the weekend, and kind of similar practice there. And then I mentioned Good Dollar as well, which obviously is from a UBO perspective really strong. And then People is also a really strong a use case of what happens on the Fuse network.
Okay, thank you. So the next question. So that might be interest a new member of the Fuse community is the Fuse token utility. And can you name the main use cases? Again, examples.
Yeah, sure. So the main use cases are that we are open source, very robust, incredibly interoperable. Gas on the network is very low, very cheap. We have a full tech stack backed off by mobile tech as well. So highly accessible, a highly product-focused team around clean UX and these kind of things. And incredibly supportive, right? So we're very, very supportive of the projects that launch on chain with us. We always really want to work with everybody as they come through. So I think this answers the question, what's the use case for payments, decentralized finance, builders, and it can be used for social good as well.
And the last but not least question, the EVM, I'm sorry. So the EVM market is highly competitive. So what is the USP Views?
Yeah, sure. So for the USP for Fuse, I think I mentioned it earlier, but we're not looking to say that we have the fastest finality or the most transactions per second, but we do have a very robust framework, and we do have a very business-driven mindset in terms of, and product-driven mindset, I should say that as well, right? So we want a really clean, easy way. If my mother and your mother, I don't know if your mother may be very tech-savvy, but mine is not. If they want to send money to each other, they should be able to derive the benefits of utilizing the blockchain, and they should be able to send that mobile number to mobile number without having to know how to use MetaMask, because MetaMask, for all intents and purposes, super useful for people like us. But there's still a very high barrier to entry to utilize this. So really clean UX, and you can check out the Fuse Cash wallet, which is really great, and the team's done a great job on that. And then again, I'll kind of move to the business side of things and say it's really about the way that we approach what we want to do, right? We're very realistic about the fact that we can't go out, that our labs team can't develop a multitude of different payment systems, and the kind of commercial team can't be looked to go out there and search for separate payment solutions. So in the smarts of being able to develop a channel-led business from the Fuse network, this is where I really think our USP is that we can support real-world projects in a sustainable way.
Okay, thank you. So I guess we are finished with questions for Fuse.
No, thank you so much for those. I think it was all really good. And sometimes you discover a bit about the project as well when you go through and you answer these questions. So really appreciate that. Yeah. But if you don't mind, I have a few questions from our community to ask to you. You happy to answer a few questions for us, Maria?
Yes. It's just like 3 questions. Would you like to read or?
Yeah, sure. So I would just like to, if you could tell us a bit about your project and if you could explain what's the elevator pitch? Could you explain the project in a few sentences?
So as I mentioned before, GetBlock is a service provider of the blockchain nodes, and for example, there is a wallet, and there are 2 ways how you could launch it. You could create your own nodes using different specifications and documentations, or choose a GetBlock and connect to our nodes via API. So this is like the simplest explanation.
And so why use the GetBlock API?
So I think the first reason, because it's pretty simple and very fast how you connect to the node. For example, our users they could find a tutorial on our YouTube channel how to connect to the node, like in 5 minutes, literally. Maybe the second thing, because we provide more than 40 blockchains on our platform, so you don't have to try to find another blockchain provider for another, like a blockchain that you are interested in or you need it, so you could connect to a lot of them. And maybe, also we have like a test option to make sure that our service fits your needs and fits for a project. So yeah, that's like the main reasons.
Excellent. And I guess I'm going to push the question back to you. The last question you asked me is, how is GetBlock different from other service providers, and what's the USP of GetBlock?
Oh, so according to our research, each clients came to us with specific request or certain goal, and sometimes it's difficult for users to connect to other node provider because even if they could do that, it's kind of a little bit different to get specific customization for the blockchain nodes. So, according to our policy, let's say this, all users should have an option to test our node first, just to get a kind of feedback from the service, and, to make sure that it's suitable for them. So also our team is always open for custom requirements from our users. And I'm talking about like clusters with microservices, like node monitoring and other stuff.
Oh, no, fantastic. We're not a super inquisitive community at Fuse, and these are the three questions. I'm super happy to get those answers. So thank you very much for that.
So I think like it's everything, and all the questions are covered. And I hope you enjoy our conversation.
Yeah, no, always a pleasure. Yeah, we'll do it again sometime soon.